people who are coming in. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's coming out today. If you haven't joined a meeting with us before, we're UX at UW, and we host a variety of different prototyping and design workshops. If you have seen us before, then you're probably already familiar with Miggi from Figma. He's done a lot of workshops for us, everything that has to do with design and getting really acclimated to Figma. And so today we have a really interesting workshop, something that we haven't done before, which is prototyping. So definitely really excited to have that. And it's always really fun when we have Miggi for workshops. And so, yeah, with that, I'll just give the floor to Miggi and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Miggi, and I am a designer advocate for education here at Figma. And today we're going to do a little prototyping workshop, Prototyping 101. I'm going to share this file with you all. Actually, I can see y'all already hopping in here. That's great. I'm going to copy the link. So we're going to go page by page. I'm going to just do some like demonstrating, and I can have y'all like follow suit. We're going to kind of walk through the building of a prototype here in Figma today. Just a quick reminder, Figma and FigJam are free for students and educators. Go to figma.com/education to verify your account. Once you verify, you can have what is known as an education team. With an education team, you can do things like create libraries as well as be able to use video in prototyping. I was doing a workshop with another school recently, and they were saying, oh yeah, we would really love to do paste ups with video, but you can't put video into Figma. It turns out nobody made an education team. They're all using the free tier, but the free education tier gives you a lot of extra stuff. So make sure you check that out, create an education team, and then you can use advanced features such as conversations. You could have like voice chat in Figma, as well as using video in your prototypes. And so without further ado, we're going to get started. This is actually using, so if you've attended the previous workshop that I did for you all, this is using a bunch of assets for that. And we're going to dig into creating prototypes. I'm going to start from very simple prototype things that you can do. And when I'm talking about a prototype, what I'm talking about is making something that is testable. So here when I hit play, I just threw my mouse halfway across the screen. Here when I hit play, right, I can kind of like view this, right? I can scroll, up and down, and I can click on that story, and it's going to take me to this other little window where I can view these doggos, and I can even see this doggo play out in video. Now, everything that you can do with prototyping is probably a little bit more than what we can cover today, but I want to at least cover enough so you all feel confident in your ability to start to mess around and make something with prototypes. And when I talk about them being testable, this link here that I'm currently viewing, if you were to go to it, right? So I'm going to copy this link. And hey, Sean, how's it going? So if I copy that link and you press that link and you go to this page, right? I could see you all are popping in here, right? So Annie, I could follow you. And Annie, as you interact with that prototype, I can watch you interact with it. So here you go. Yeah, scroll up and down. See, so my hands are up in the air, but I'm watching you interact with this prototype. And what's cool about that is that it is testable. You can make a prototype. You can share this with the link with someone else, and you can follow them as they're navigating it, right? So you can hop onto a Zoom. You can do real user testing with your designs. So what's great about that is you can hype that up in your portfolio. You can make an example, like a little prototype, and you can screen record, watching somebody else interact with your prototype, testing your ideas. And that's going to make more of a meaningful conversation when you're talking about your work. So that's why this is important. That's why this is great. So let's just see if anybody else is looking at it. I can see, where y'all are at, like in this prototype, if you're navigating with it or you're interacting with it.
In progress.
Oops. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to cover some very basics. here in Figma. So in order to create your first prototype, you need at least one frame. To create a frame, you press the F key. I'm going to walk you through this little example that I have right here, and then I'm going to give you all the opportunity to try a little test in this file, but I want to draw your attention where you need to be paying attention. So if you look over here in my pages, I have intro, example, and I have basics. So I'm in this basics folder. I've created this section. Sections you can create with Shift S. Section is just kind of like a little container. In here, I have two frames. The frame, you press the F key, you draw out a frame. When you have that frame selected and you are in the design panel, you can choose the device that you want to represent. So right now, I believe I have an iPhone 14. They look to be about the same size. They are the same size. So this is going to be an iPhone 14 prototype. Now, when you're working in this mode, right? So it all starts with the frame key. When you're working with the basics of prototyping, you're going to be swapping between design and prototype mode. So if you look up here, you'll see design and prototype. If you press Shift E, you will swap between those pretty regularly. So that's something that you want to be aware of, whether or not you're designing and adding things to the canvas, or if you're in prototype mode and creating relationships between frames. So let's talk through creating a relationship between frames and interaction. It should be between frames. So here I have two frames. In this first frame, I'm just going to draw a rectangle. So just like a simple rectangle, you don't need to follow along just now. Just watch, see how I do the thing, right? I'm just going to put a red square in this rectangle, and then I'm going to copy that. And over here in the end, I'm going to make this red square just a little bit bigger and wider. Now, a couple things you want to pay attention to. As I'm adding these things to these frames, if you look over on the layers panel, right? So I have that end frame, I have that star frame, and I have this little rectangle. I'm just going to call this example rectangle. Right, I'm going to copy that name and I'm going to paste it here. So I want you to know that I have the exact same thing here in these two frames. I'm going to create a very simple interaction to go from one to the second one. Let's make this one little right here. There we go. So I have a start frame and I have an end frame. So I'm going to switch from being in design mode to go into prototype mode. So I can click on this little thumb here, or I can press Shift E and I'm magically in prototype mode. The difference between being in design mode and being in prototype mode is you'll notice that once you start hovering over objects, you will see this like little plus that shows up. And if I hover over this frame, right, I can select the frame, you'll see this little plus. This will show up whenever I'm in prototype mode. And what it does is it lets me know that I can now create an interaction between those two frames. So here, let's say if I do something with this red rectangle in this start frame, I can then end up in this end frame. The second that I create that relationship between the two, right, we call these noodles. The second that I create that noodle, I click on the noodle, I will now get interaction details. And I even have a little panel here that shows what is going on in this interaction details. So here you have the interaction. So on tap, on drag, while hovering, while pressing. These are all like events that are taking place, right? And then the behavior or what happens is like a response to it, right? I can navigate to another frame. This is the one that you're most likely going to be using. You can also open an overlay. So if you have like a little window modal that you want to pop up over everything, I have swap overlay. So if I need to swap that little modal for like another thing, so this can be another frame, could be another component, I can close that overlay, and then this will go back to the previous frame that I was at most recently. Scroll to will allow me to scroll within like let's say like a little map, and I want to navigate to a little area. An open link will open up a brand new link so I can navigate to a website. So this is the one that I'm going to be dealing with most likely, most often. Here is the animation. You get to choose the transition that takes place that's going to take you from frame 1 to frame 2. Right now, it's going to be set to instant. I can leave it at instant. That just means it's going to immediately go to the next frame. Smart Animate is going to look at those two different frames and cause an animation, but let's not concern ourselves with that just yet. I'm just going to use what is known as a move in. And any of these down here, these are simple transitions that you want to use when going from one completely different frame to another completely different frame, usually like a little side menu. So these are all transitions that you could see it'll push in, right? This one will slide in. So you see how the transition takes place. And with these two, you can also start to see and change the direction. You can have something come from the bottom, from the top, from the left, from the right. You could also make it move out from the left, from the right to the bottom to the top. So these are usually underutilized in Figma. They're really helpful. And what you want to do is you want to think about, your user as they understand where menus are coming in and out of. And then smart animate matching layers. If you have something that is exactly the same on the frame, such as a menu across the top, that is something that you're going to turn on. But the last two things you're really going to pay attention to are the type of movement. I'm always going to use some degree of ease in out depending on my trigger. So I'm going to show you a custom Bezier. What I normally do here, these numbers can be associated directly with CSS. My favorite is about 0.8 comma, let's see, 0, and then comma, 0.2 comma 1. And what that does is those first two digits moves that point. So it's basically going 80% across and 0, and then it's going 20% across and 1. So these four values, the first two are dictating this dot, and the second two are dictating this top dot. So if you're looking at the screen share, you'll see this window. If you are looking directly in the file, you'll just see whatever I have behind it. So this is an S curve. This S curve represents a slow in and a slow out. And I'll explain that once you see it. So here we go. I have this transition. Whenever I click on it, you'll see all of those details. And I'm going to click this red rectangle and have it go back. And you'll see all of these other details. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. If you're in the file, you can click play right on that flow. And you will see that when I click, right, it moves over, right? What I like to do is I like to make a test bed of some of these, right, to see how they're working and which ones look good. So we see that when I click on this one, right, it moves out in the left direction, so I can actually change that. I can say, okay, let's move the other one in. Let's move B over A, right? And then here's my little end frame. When that goes back, right, let's have it go back in the opposite direction. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Now this should start to make a little bit more sense. When I click on the one frame, it comes from the right. And then when I click on it, it goes back to the right. So we want to think about where was it staged beforehand? And then where does it come back after the fact? So this is great if you're pulling up a menu and you have a whole bunch of new options. You're not trying to transition something from one frame to the next. Any questions? Any questions? Cool. All right, so I'll continue. So now if I want to, I can select both of those frames at the same time. Let's say I don't want to perform that like mixed, animation where it's moving in and move out. I just want them to smart animate. Now, smart animate is going to look at your layers, right? Now it's relatively easy because I only have one object on here. It's going to look at your layers and it's going to attempt to cross animate between them. And you have to make sure they have the exact same name and that you're only changing certain simple properties. So here, I'm just changing the width and the height. I'm going to go to the design panel. I'm going to select that color and I'm going to change that color to blue. So we're changing a couple properties here, right? So I'm going to change its position. I'm going to scale. It's going to go down. It's going to get larger and it's going to get a little bit wider. And with that smart animate, what that's going to do, it's going to look at the difference between those two and it's going to animate them across those properties as if they're magic. Now, the more complex your layers are, you just have to be more diligent in how you arrange them and how you name them and make sure that every starting frame has an end frame. Because if these aren't named correctly, if I change this from example rectangle to red rectangle, now when I hit that play, when I hit that prototype, you'll see it'll crossfade, right? It's not going to be as smooth. It's not going to be working. It's just going to cross dissolve. However, if it is named properly, I can type in example, boop, 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 example rectangle, tangle. There we go. And now, I can hit play. By the way, you can also hit, what is it? Command Option Enter, or it's Control Alt Return, or Command Option Enter, to hit that prototype play. And you'll see now that it actually will smooth animate. So, and you can do a bunch of things. I could even like rotate that object. You could change some of very basic properties, and you can watch as they transition, and you can have a lot of fun with that. Cool. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Sweet. I'll continue. Feel free to drop questions in the chat as you have them. So if you have a question, let me know if I can assist in solving that for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is scrolling. The most basic thing that you can do in Figma is set up something to be scrolled in that prototype. I'm going to set up a very simple one here, but I'll show you how this example works. When I clicked on that home frame, I hit the play button, right? And here you see I got this horizontal scrolling action going, but then I also got vertical scrolling action going, right? So I have multiple things scrolling on the page, right? And you would say, wow, that already looks like something that is done. It's looking very, very close. And what that is just making use of a very simple concept of scrolling in the way that nested content can overflow outside of its parent frame. And I'll walk you through what that means. So here, if y'all want to follow me along with this example, I'll demo it a little bit slower, so you can follow along. I'm going to draw here a frame on the canvas. So feel free to draw a frame on this canvas. I'm going to name it with my name. I'm going to call it Miggi. And I'm going to set it to an iPhone 14 for this example on this page. So I've created a frame. I press the F key. I draw it on the stage. I set it to an iPhone 14 frame. Now, what I'm going to do is add content for it to be scrolled. So here, I'm going to draw a rectangle, right? So I have this one rectangle. I'm going to hold down the Option key. It's the Alt key on Windows. And then you'll notice as soon as I push that Alt key, you'll see the Option key. You'll see that second cursor come up, and as I begin dragging and hold on the Shift key, it'll make a duplicate. So I just made a second one. Now I can expand that further. I'm going to hit Command D, 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 right? And you'll see that they're hidden outside of the bounds of the frame. In order for a frame to scroll, it needs content to scroll to. So here in this frame, if I were to unclip the content, I can click right here and you can see that additional content. Now, it's very easy for this content to not be in the frame anymore, right? So you want to make sure that it's all nested inside of your frame. So the frame looks like this. You'll see this little tic-tac-toe hash pattern over here, and all of these rectangles are inside of it. And what we want to do is we want to be able to scroll them. So here I'm going to click on that frame again. I'm going to clip the content to that frame. So they're all nested within. You see them inside of that frame here. Yes? Somebody had a question? No? Okay. So I'll continue. So here I select that frame, and if I hit play, you will notice that it doesn't work, right? You're just like, what's going on, man? Like, totally want this to work. Why isn't it scrolling? Because you have to tell it to scroll. So I click this frame and I go back to my prototype window. The switch back and forth, remember Shift E, it's that Shifty key. Press Shift E, it goes into prototype mode, and you'll see this option right here. It says scroll behavior overflow, and basically it's asking how should the content that overflows outside of the bounds of this frame behave, and we're going to choose vertical scrolling. So you could scroll strictly horizontally, right? You could scroll strictly vertically, or you can scroll in both directions, and both directions would equate to a map. So if you think about yourself navigating around Google Maps, you're scrolling in two directions. That's what you would choose for that point, and I can show you that as an example. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it as vertical scrolling because all of these objects are going beneath this frame. Now, when I go back to my panel, right, you can just leave it open. You can leave that tab open, and you'll notice it works now. So I'm able to drag up and drag down. And because it is set as a mobile device. You'll notice that you don't see a hand, a cursor, I'm sorry, an arrow. You actually see the little like tap thing. And when I press, you'll see it has like a little has a little hover state underneath. When I click down, I can drag it. So I'm going to show you a few more ways to do that. So right here, these are just objects nested inside of this frame. I'm going to create another frame. I'm going to press the F key. I'm going to draw out the frame. I'm going to click on the design panel. Here, I'm going to choose iPhone 14 once again. This I'm going to do a little bit different. So if I just press, I'm going to draw, like, let's say I draw a rectangle, right? Let's make this one, red. Let's round out some corners there. And let's make this horizontal. Actually, let's make them like a little wide thing there. There we go. So even if I want to like set up and like work with like a little grid here, I can click on that frame. I can go to my layout grid. I can set those columns. I'm going to set 4 columns. Let's set them to stretch. Let's set our margins to be like 24 and our gutters to be 16. So we want to get a sense of that. Maybe our gutter is a little bit more because I'm sorry, maybe our margin is a little bit more, like 28, or let's do 32, because we might have some content to go in that gutter. So here, if I'm going to have like, let's say like a little product scrolling thing here, right? The gutter is set to 16. This object is here. So what I want is to have multiple of these objects with a gutter of 16. So let's see. All right, I'll select y'all two, and I'm going to type in 16 between there. So now we have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hit Command D, 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 right? We have a whole bunch of them now. And I can select them and I can make a component out of them. So we covered components last time. So I'm going to create this component. And so here's our component. I'm going to hold down the Option key to make like an instance of it, right? So this instance is going to go here. And you can see we have that affordance of there being just a little bit more. Now, this won't scroll because the content of this component fits the frame itself. So you have to watch this little bit. I'm going to hold down the Option key. Oh, sorry, not the Option key, the Command key. You hold on the Command key, and I'm going to drag this over to be the right amount of space, right? So I can do that. I can drag that there. So this is the main component, and you'll look, if you blinked, you missed it, right? I'm using the Command key to define its viewable area. And if I go to clip content, just like that frame, this component is clipping out that area. And so now, because I've clipped that area, I can set that to scroll horizontally. So now I can go to my prototype window, and here I can say overflow horizontal scrolling. So now when I drag this to the left, those will drag out. And guess what? Because it's a component, I can have, multiple of these things, right? And it's actually, make sure you're in design mode when you're making this, otherwise it will be annoying. And we could set the spacing in between those to 16. So here we go. So we have these 3 objects. I'm going to click on frame 3. Let's hit play. And what you'll see is I can now drag them, and I have to account for some extra space over here. So that's it's not a bug, it's a feature. I can fix that. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take that component and give myself a little bit more space on the left-hand side. So I'm going to take my component. Let's move it over here, and I'll hold down that Command key to bring it over, right? And I can bring them all over. There we go, 1, 2, 3, right? So now this has been sized up, and it works in this space, right? And we have ourselves 3 horizontal scrolling, little galleries there. So I'm able to scroll them until they reach their endpoint. And now you also may be thinking, okay, well, that's great, but what am I going to do with 3 of the same thing? What's cool about this is I can actually come in here. I can take this one, I can unclip it. And if I want to make this a scrolling gallery, because those are all shapes, I can replace their fills. I'm going to hit Command P, brings up this little menu here. And I'm going to say place image video. Click on that, and that's my headshot. Let's see, documents, assets. I'm going to grab a few images here. How many do I have? Let's grab this many. I don't even know how many that is. Maybe I'm right on. I don't know. All right. So what that's going to let me do is just place some images right into there. Let me hit escape. And let's say this one I want to fix. I can option double click on it, bring it into view. And now I can clip that and bring it back. So now when I play this frame, I have a wonderful little scrolling gallery. Is there a way to make a scroll bar appear? So right now, there isn't a way to make a scroll bar appear. So yeah, I can totally show you the image pasting thing again. I will also show you, see how it's like snapping to that edge. I'll show you how to get a little bit more space on that edge. So the first question was, show the image pasting thing one more time. Sure. So here, I'm going to do that with the second little row. I'm going to drag that over here. I'm going to unclip that content. Once again, this is a component. It has a bunch of elements inside of it. And then like I adjusted some of this spacing here. Now, to drop those images in, there's a couple ways you can do this. If you go here to the menu, you can say File, Place Image or Video. The shortcut key for that is Shift Command K. If you're on Windows, you will see the shortcut key show up specifically in Windows speak. So it might be like Shift Control K. So now another way to do that, the way that I was doing it, I hit Command P or Control P if you're on Windows, and I type in Place Image Video, and that's going to allow me to place some images. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is probably not showing up in the Zoom window. I realize I'm looking at my file browser on my OS, so you're probably not seeing that. So I'm just picking some images in the file browser. And once I'm done picking those, it will go into image place mode. So you see it says place all, discard all, but I can just click on any shape and it'll place that image into that object. And now if I want to change the position of that image, I hold down the option key, it's Alt key on Windows, double click. I think you might be able to just double click. Yeah, you can just double click. What am I talking about? Nope, option double click is better. Option double click or Alt double click, and that puts it into crop mode. And I can like just recrop it, just place my image however I want it to look. Right there, that already looks great. And I can bring down to flamingo, can option double click on flamingo. There it is. And then I can clip that once more. And now I have two completely different scrolling galleries. I can select them. Let's put some 16 pixel space between them. And now we're in prototype mode and we're jamming. So there we go. So I maybe scrolled too fast. The images haven't popped in yet. So there we go. I'm able to scroll those in as part of that. So those don't need to just be rectangles. They can be components. So if I go, I have here an assets page all the way at the bottom, and I have this little social post component that was made out of auto layout. I can copy that, come back into that basics file, and I can paste a bunch of these, right? 1, 2, 3. I can paste a whole grid of them, right? And I can put that and make them a component. So now I've made a component. And now when I hold the command key, I can reduce what is visible, right? And I can do it in any direction. Let's say I want to start from the center. And these are the bounds of the component. I'm pressing command key to control how this is placed. Here we go. Command key. There we go. So now I can hit clip content. And so if in another frame, I go in here and I drop an instance of this component into that frame, right? It's in there. It's probably not the right size. That's totally okay. Now with this component, if I go into prototype mode, I can now change its behavior. So right now the overflow is set to no scrolling, but I can say both directions. So now it's both directions, and I click on frame 4 and I hit play. And we basically have like a little map of like Instagrams, right? And you know, if I want to, I can come, you know, I can make this a little bit bigger, right? So I can drag this main component. Oops, I could drag this main component into this page. I can hold down the, what is it, the command key, right? And I can drag it specific to that area. Let's move that one out of the way because that's the main component. And even this one, right? Same thing. All of this text I can now change, blah, 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 blah. Could I show the columns thing again and how we set the gutters? Are the columns a rectangle? No, the columns are a grid object. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. That's a great question. So here, let's unclip that and drop some of those images into here. So I can click and boop, 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 boop. So this is in the main component, right? In the main component, I can also set back to clip content. And now here in frame 4, I can hit play. And you will note that I can now zoom around these images as components. But I just want you to get comfortable with zoom because there's or with scrolling because there's a lot you can do. So someone asked about the grid. So if I draw out a frame and let's set the frame, I'll just do iPhone 14 again, and I'll show you how this works. I can create a layout grid, and you can create a column grid. You can create rows and grids, grid, and you can layer them all up. So I can set in here columns. I can set 4 columns. I think I set the margins. The margins are on the outside. I set those at 32. And I set the gutters. That's the space in between. Fun fact, they're not actual gutters. They're technically called alleys, but because Adobe misnamed them as being gutters in their own software, now everybody calls these gutters, even though they're technically alleys. A gutter is the inside of a page of a book. But when you have these little spaces, they're actually technically called alleys. Look it up. So this gutter, I'm going to change that to 62. So, or 16. So these are 16, that's 32. And so now when I expand this, right, you see it grow in size. What's cool about that is if I was to take one of these components, the way that I have it set up, I can click on that component, I can drag it to those columns. And then over here, these constraints, I can set it to left and right constraints. And what that means is it'll grow with the size. So even if I turn off the grid, right, it'll grow with that width. So like even if it was set to like 3 of them, right, it'll snap to those columns and actually grow. So that's a fun fact about Figma's grids, is that when you're using stretch grids, you can actually have that grow with the width of your frame. So people use that for responsive design. So this is being used in coordination with some auto layout elements to create that. All right, cool. Show columns thing. Okay, cool. Awesome. Glad you found that helpful. Yeah, and with the grids too, when you set that up, I can go in and I can add in rows, right? So I just add in a bunch of rows. So let's say if I throw in 4 rows with the 32 pixel margins, right? 32 pixel margins in the same gutter, right? Then I basically have a modular grid that is flexible, with my content, and you can always add more columns. So I could set up like 12 column, and then go here with the rows. I could set up 6 rows. And if I wanted to, I can set this whole thing as, let's say, like, 1920 by 1080, and you have yourself like a little, modular grid for setting up your presentations and such. So grids are pretty flexible and very, very powerful in Figma, the way that they're constructed and the way that they work. Okay, cool. So transitions, we've already kind of talked about transitions where you move in and move out and push things. So here I'll just show you one more time. This is using a component. So when I drag that over, right, on click, it's going to navigate to, so depending on what I have as a transition, right, I can slide it in and we can see what that looks like. Usually I make like a whole little page where I test out various transitions, right? So slide in. So when I click, it slides in. But you can do other things. Let's see, I can make an overlay. An overlay has something come up over everything else. So let's say, here, I'm going to draw a rectangle. Just have it be I always start with rectangles. Basically, this is wireframing. This is what you do when you're wireframing. You're testing out to see how something might work. Normally, when I'm prototyping, I prototype with just basic rectangles before I make it more complex. And once again, I will use kind of pre-built components to prototype with because you don't want to have to manage all of these little things individually by themselves. You want to construct the piece itself before you animate it. But like, let's say I want to have this be a little overlay, right? I'm going to type in overlay. Let's make that white. And let's make that a little bit bigger. Is there any way to create custom animations aside from Smart Animate? So if you want a star wipe or something, so you would make a star wipe with Smart Animate, right? So like Smart Animate gives you, oh, did I like lose all the examples? I thought I had like a ton of examples. Oh, I thought like I tossed them out. Um, Here, let me open up a new page. I'm gonna hop in here. Oops. No. It's like trying to auto go to a page that I don't want it to go to. So here, let's say if I hop into, nope, that's the wrong one. Let's see, prototyping. And now I have it here somewhere. One sec. I just have like a bunch of, here we go, animation basics. Is it all in here? I think it's all in here. Yeah, let's open this in editor. So like what you can do with Smart Animate is a ton of things actually, right? So if you think about it as like a sequence, not just between two frames, right? So here, I click, I click, I click. I can make like little pack people. So this is using like two little like half circles, and another little object there, animating in. This was like a student examples of mine where, we'd prototype silly little things, this just a bunch of little circles, and it's just controlling how they're layered to make it look like a 3D object. Making these kinds of things. So you can control it when you have, much of these other examples. And if you check out my animating 101 on Figma's YouTube, you can like learn a little bit more of this. And oh, even this one, this is a fun example. So if I hit play, this is kind of like using the drag interaction as well in Figma. I can show you how to do that. So here, I'm just going to show you a quick overlay. So I'm going to make this bigger. Boop, boop, boop. And I'm going to hit bold. I'm going to make this into a component, right? So we have this little component here. So now when I go into prototype mode, let's say on click, instead of navigate to, I say open overlay, and you'll see this different icon show up. And let's close when clicking outside. Let's add a background behind the overlay. It'll be, like 25%. And we can have it dissolve in, right? Or we can have it move in. We can have it like come from the, let's have it come from the bottom, right? And it's going to animate in with a little ease. So now on click, it's going to open this overlay and it's going to play in here. So if I hit play, what that's going to do is, I press Z to fit it, right? So if it's ever too big, press Z. And then now I got this little overlay and it'll go away. Comes in, goes away, comes in, goes away. So what's cool about that is you actually don't need a whole nother frame for it to go to. You could just have that pop up. One other fun thing about that, this is kind of segue into the next thing I was going to show y'all. This little heart, when I click on it, you see the little heart, it actually animates in. And you're probably thinking like, whoa, where'd that heart animation come from? We didn't prototype it. Why is it there? And what's fun about that is like if I have a frame with a bunch of these, right? So I have like all of these in that frame. And if I hit play, I know I'm getting kind of chaotic now. But do these little experiments, man, like have lots of fun. So look at, I can click on these little hearts and they all light up. This is what's known as an interactive component. This allows you to package up your interaction into like a little thing. And that's what I have right here. I'm going to show you all quickly how to create that interactive component. This is that interactive component where we have 3 different states. When you click on this one, it gets bigger and then it automatically goes to this next one. Um, Here I have a gallery and I'll show you how this works and then I'll walk you through how to build it. So, and we could even do one with dragging. So I just mentioned dragging. So here, this is my interactive component. I'm going to copy this one, put it here. I'm going to click on this frame. Let's make this, iPhone 14. That's going to go to the full width of the iPhone 14. So that's cool. Let's do that. We have one, right? We'll drop in another one. Now, if you want to work outside of the frame, you unclip that content. And here with these two, I'm just going to move it up a little bit. With these two, let's drop in some of those photos that I have. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to paste them into these kind of placeholder image things, right? And now these two components, let's clip that. So this is an interactive component. And what it's doing is it's basically navigating from this first slide to the second slide to this third slide. If I was to clip them all, you see, this is all you see. So we're going to drag to the next one. And we're going to drag to the third one. And what's cool about that is now that you have it once, you can have it, right? So I could drag, 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 right? Once you have this like component, I can press the K key and I can scale it. I can make a little one, press the K key and scale it, right? And you can have like a bunch of these on the same frame. So it's a nested interaction, right? So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, right? And if I wanted to change the starting point, I can select it and I can go, this is starting at the second one. This is starting at the third one. So they all have their own different states. And in this single frame, I can, do that interaction. And I can like hop in and I can override those. I'm going to show you how to make this. So an interactive component, I'm going to draw out a frame. Let's just have a starting frame. Actually, let's make a very little one first. Let's make a very simple one. So I'm going to draw a frame out, and in this frame, I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I know this is all getting recorded, so feel free to follow along in the recording after. So here we go. I have this. I'm going to round out these corners. So I have this little switch pill here. Press the O key and draw a little circle. Let's make that white. So there we go. Boop. So I moved it in by 2. And let's have another frame. And I'm going to move this out here, 1, 2. And here I'm going to have it change a little bit. Let's make it red. And let's make it green. There you go, green. And there we go. Let's take this and, let's make it like also green. I don't know. There you go. Something. Boom. There we go. So these are our two states. So if I want to drag over to this one, I'm going to go to prototype mode, right? So I'm going to Shift E, prototype mode. I'm going to drag a noodle going from this circle to this frame. And instead of on click, we're going to choose on drag. Now, for on drag to work, this object needs to exist in both frames and it needs to go in the direction that it's dragging, right? So this circle moves to the right side. So when I drag it to the right, it's going to go there, right? And then same thing here. I'm going to have this go back, say on drag, really important to set that. And then let's make sure both of these are set so I can select both of those noodles there. And they're both set to Smart Animate. So now if I hit play on this frame, this should work. So I just drag there, I drag there, right? But that's using 2 frames. That's not exactly what we want. So I'm going to select them both. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to create them as a component set. So now this is a component set. And you'll see on drag navigate to, we actually want to set that property to change to. That's the only thing we really need to do. And now this is an interactive component. And what that means is if I have a frame, I can drop in a bunch of these. So I could have 1, drag it down, 2, 3, 4, 5. right? So now I have these little switches. And what's cool, like if you have like a settings page, you could like switch them on or off. And you're doing so while you're in the same page. If you had to use the kind of frame setup that we had before, you'd have to think through every possible permutation, which would just be too much work. But now I can have these as interactive components. So what's cool about that is there's just like a lot of really fun opportunity to be had in the things that you can make. The example that I usually like to work with students so they can kind of make an example and see the kind of freedom that they can have. Usually I do a very similar thing. I draw two frames and I put in a circle, and I start the circle, as being like small, and then I have it go large. Um, and so here I will select both of those, make them a component set. And then here, instead of on click, we'll try while hovering, right? So while hovering, it's going to go to this next frame, and let's set ourselves a nice color on that. And so I did this on the whole frame itself. So the frame, while hovering, it changes to, we have smart animate, we have our nice little animation there, and I can press the F key, draw another larger frame. I can copy this and I can paste a bunch of these, into here. Let's say 3 across and all the way down. Now, to make this actually look like, we can go here, we could choose a frame. Ooh, iPhone 4. No, let's make this bigger. Let's choose like let's see, an iPad Pro. There we go. Got this. They fit into an iPad Pro. That's cool. That's clutch. Let's try one more time. Frame, iPad Pro. There we go. Let's grab all those, throw them in the center. Okay, so now I can go to my prototype mode and I can click on prototype settings and we can choose that iPad Pro device. I can even change the background, right? Sometimes I like to have it on a nice green because I can key it out in like, After Effects or something if I create a screen recording. So there we go. So now I have this iPad Pro. Let's make it go fuchsia, like fuchsia prototypes. I can even change the device. There you go. That's good. And I can hit play. So now we can see when I hover, they kind of like follow, and so you make a fun little like abstract presentation there. So what's cool about this is if I click on the stage, and here I can create a flow starting point, and I can call this like my iPad example 1, and I can duplicate these, so I can select them both, hold on the Option key, drag, and now this is my iteration 2. So let's click on that, create another flow starting point, and call this was it iPad iteration 2. Let's change something about this. Let's make that blue, and let's change the transition to be longer. Let's say like 600 milliseconds. And now when I click on iPad iteration 2, we can test this idea. We can see, oh, okay, so now we have that slow animation, and I can go back to my first iPad example. So I can actually demonstrate the progression of my idea over time, and I can have them all saved over here. So here I can have iPad example, or I could say iPad iteration 1, right? I have my flow 1, one device per page. So you can see that this device doesn't really match up, but if you set up one device per page, each flow is like a sub segment of the thing that you're showcasing, that you're showing your idea for. So for each page, you can have one. Now, fun fact, if you want, you can actually transition back to another page. So let's say, for example, like let's say I have this flow, right? I have this, flow. And what this has here is it has the scrolling, right? We already covered that scrolling. Cool. Thank you. So here I have that scrolling in 2 ways. I have that interactive component, right? And now what I can do is let's say I'm going to navigate to, here, let's go to my interactive components page. Let's just create play. I'm going to copy the link to this prototype. So I'm going to go share prototype. Let's copy that link. And now here in that first page, I'm going to click on this item here. So I want to go from an iPhone to an iPad, right? Let's create a new interaction. And on tap, we're going to open link, right? And we're going to paste that link. And we're not going to choose open in new tab. We're going to have it play in the same page. So we're going to say, all right, we're clicking on this, but we want to transition over to the iPad. So now I can close that out and you'll see this little cool link thing pop up. And so when I hit play and I'm walking through this prototype, right, I'm navigating, let's say we want to go to that different flow on that different page. I tap this. Oh no, please work. Not going to work for me. It's going to be a jerk. Let's see. I'm going to copy this one more time. Let me make sure I put it on. Let's try. I'm just going to put on the whole thing. Let's see if that works. I don't know why that didn't work. Let's try one more time. Let's see. Tap. Open link. It's like so excited for that to work. That's a bummer. And this just goes to show you sometimes not everything works. So say on tap, open link, paste that in. Cool. So this should be tapping into there. And let's try that. Please work. No. I don't know why it's not working. We can see it there. All right. I'm gonna try. I'll just do this. Let's have that top bar. Watch this not work either. All right. Could just be something dumb that I'm doing. Say open link. Let's paste. All right. Let's not have it open up in a new tab. Of course, it could be something wrong with this like prototype because I think I copied it from like an older file. So let's try. I'm just going to draw a new frame. Let's draw a rectangle. And if this breaks here, that means that Figma changed something today and I have to report a bug. So on tap, open link, let's paste the link, and let's try this here. This is how let's test to see if things are working, folks. Yeah, it's breaking here for me. I wonder why. I wonder if it has. Try opening a new tab to play. I might just have to report this. Yeah, that one works. Opening in a new tab seems to work just fine. So I'm going to have to see if I have to just change a permission on my browser or something. It worked a week ago, I promise. But yeah, at least it works with the other thing. So let's see. All right. But anyways, you can open links. If that doesn't work, always test things out, see if you can get them to work. So yeah, let's see here. Let's open that in a new tab. Let's see if that works in a new tab. Here we go. And tap. Yeah, of course, it works now. So I have to just see like what's going on, why that's not working. But all right, cool. Any other questions? I think we have about 4 minutes. As I mentioned, there's still a ton more that you can do. I'm going to direct you to going to figma.com/@figma. If you go to this page, there's some great examples. So if you want to do like sticky scrolling in prototypes, there is a playground file that will walk you through that whole concept. Also, if you want to dig into video prototypes, you can just go here, you can duplicate this video, and then you have it available for yourself. And it'll walk you through the whole concept. It'll explain to you how to upload videos. And then there's a ton of different examples that you can play. So this is one of my favorites. This is video chapters. Here, let me go to the first page and I'll walk you through some of these really cool examples. So if you want to prototype with video, it gives you a lot of really cool capabilities. So here I'll even put on the share my computer sound. So here you can hear the computer sound. So here I can mute the audio. I can skip ahead 10 seconds. I can go back. This is another great example. So I can skip to various places. I can pause the video. There you go. This one's fun because basically when it hits 4 seconds, it'll display this overlay, and I can scroll that overlay and close that out. Here's another example that's kind of fun. So I can press keyboard to play. And basically what that means is, so here in the prototype, when you click this, right, it'll play pause, but then there's also a keyboard. So here you can see there's a click, there's a keyboard, and then there's a keyboard and a click. And what that does is it'll actually play pause that video. So all of these interactions in here that are specific to video will display once you've added video. And you can just drag a video onto your screen so long as that it exists inside of an education team. Cool. And then I'll just show you a couple more. So what can be done with video. Here's another example where you can scroll. It's going to play like those like videos in line. Here, this is like a TikTok example. So you scroll it up. This is using the drag interaction, and it loops all the way around. This is a fun example where it's just, full size scaling down. This one here, just on hover. When you hover, it plays the video. Boop. And then this one's fun. It's like a little audio player. When I pause it, I can mute it. And when I mute it, it goes like blurred out. I can play this one. So this is using interactive components. So each one of these is an interactive component. It'll play on this page. So these are just like little videos with the audio recording going. And this is a fun little example where it shows the progress of the video.
Hey, just wanted you to know that I'm held up in traffic, but I should only be about 5 minutes late, so see you soon.
And basically, I just want you to know that these types of prototypes are totally possible. And if you go page by page here, you will see all of the assets and everything necessary to dig into working with that. Once again, this file is available on Figma community, so you can check that out. Any questions? Awesome, thank you. So cool. Make sure you check out, like I said, go to figma.com/@Figma. You can get do more with video and prototypes. If you want to learn more about auto layout, we have a whole playground file that explains that as well. Sticky scrolling in prototypes, this is something I haven't even touched yet, but this came out a few weeks ago. So it allows, when you're scrolling for certain objects to stick to the top. And also check out figma.com/@education. So if you want a similar, if you want like your own file that's similar to this, so you can go to Presenting with Figma, Animation Basics, or Prototyping 101 and learn. All three of these are about prototyping. When you go into one of these files, the actual YouTube video, the live stream video is in there. So you could just hit play and watch the live stream. So each one of those has the associated hour-long live stream that walks through the concepts. So check out Presenting with Figma, Prototyping 101, and Animation Basics, and that'll give you so much of what you need to know to feel comfortable and confident in working in your prototypes.
Okay, thank you so much, Miggi, for coming back. We always love having your workshops, and yeah, I think everyone in the chat can. It's pretty clear. Like every time you have a workshop, there's always so much to walk away with. And yeah, if you guys want to rewatch anything, we'll have this recorded and posted. So just look out on our Instagram for that. When we are like posting it to our YouTube, so you guys can look back in the workshop. But yeah, thank you again, Miggi, for coming. And yeah, it's always great having you here.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
So much. For sure.
Cool. All right, everybody have a great, I was gonna say weekend, it ain't Friday. It feels like Friday. I don't know why it feels like Friday. I was totally gonna say it feels like Friday. But have a great week. If you want, feel free to reach out to me. I know nobody's using Twitter anymore. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky too. So you could hit me up at Mickey at Blue Sky. I know nobody's even on there yet, but feel free to reach out or Miggy at Figma.com. So if you have questions, the one thing that I do ask is just be patient. Like I'm slowest on email. So like feel free to send a second or third email. Just be like, yo, Migs, what up? And say that. Don't say like this is a request inquiry coming from, whatever. Just say something that actually looks human because I get a lot of robo emails. So yeah, I'm available there, and like I just love answering questions and stuff. So feel free to check me out. I think I'm also on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is like the new jam. I got like 16,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm like, yo, people really be on here. So in / Miguel Cardona, I think that's me. Oh no, let's see. Feel free in bam. Okay, there I am. Yeah, see, it even says Figma free to you. Made it look all official. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and help y'all with whatever you want. One last thing, we are having an early career week of live streams starting tomorrow. So wait, let's see. Oh man, I don't know. Wait, do I have a link to it here? Crap. One sec. You can see how prepared I am sometimes. All right, I'm gonna go to Twitter.
I think I might also have the link too if you want me to share it.
Oh yeah.
Here, this one.
Yes, that's it. Thank you so much. So we're gonna have early career week. Tomorrow's day in the life. Then we have non-traditional passive design, standout, get hired. So we have tons of like early career folk from like Amazon Music, from Banks, from Meta, all over. So they're gonna be hopping in, doing and giving advice on like your early starts in their design careers. And so I will be on the Friday one as well. So build your network, brand, and presence. So check this out. The only thing with these is that you do have to register for each one individually. So this is like the Tuesday one, Wednesday one, Thursday one, Friday one. So come hang out and show up. All right. Take care, y'all. Y'all have been wonderful and have a great week. I'm going to sign off.
So much.
Thank you.